This is Traversing the Strange World with Peace and Toodles.
Alright, we're back.
Episode 3.
I think we left off last time talking about the Muse, right?
Yeah.
That was a week ago. We record these things every week. Seems to be the schedule we're going with.
Usually on Saturdays.
So the Muse. I think you got your AI doohickey looking it up, right?
Yeah.
Got some info.
I told my AI to give me 5 facts about the Muse, and this is what it said. The Muses were born from the head of Zeus, which I think is pretty interesting. I'll go into that in a few minutes. In Greek mythology, the Muses were the daughters of Zeus, the king of the gods. I'm going to totally botch these names. And Mnemosyne, the goddess of memory, Zeus swallowed Mnemosyne. And then she turned into a fly in the story, because I think she was trying to get away from him. And then she turned into a fly and he ate her. So that's what the AI's talking about there. But Zeus swallowed Mnemosyne, and then in a burst of creativity, he gave birth to the 9 muses from his own head. Not sure where they came out, but that's what happened. Each muse had a specific domain. The muses were associated with different arts and sciences. Calliope, epic poetry. Clio, history. Euterpe, music and song. Philea, comedy and pastoral poetry. Melpomene, tragedy. Terpsichore, dance and chorus. Arato, lyric poetry. Polymia, hymns and sacred song. Urania, astronomy. The Muses were inspired by creativity in mortals. In Greek mythology, the Muses were believed to inspire creativity and artistic expression in mortals. They would whisper ideas and inspiration into the ears of poets, musicians, and artists, guiding their creative endeavors. The Muses were often depicted as beautiful maidens. In ancient Greek art and literature, the Muses were often depicted as beautiful maidens dressed in flowing robes and carrying various symbols of their artistic domains, revered for their beauty and wisdom and creative power. Fact 5, the last one. The term muse has become synonymous with creative inspiration. Today, the term muse is used to describe a person, place, or thing that inspires creativity and artistic expression. This concept has evolved from ancient Greek idea of the muses as divine sources of inspiration.
Seems like a lot of these muses have overlapping circles of their inspiration, right? There's 2 or 3. This music or poetry. 2 of them are poetry. One's music and lyric poetry.
Comedy and pastoral poetry.
Yeah, Thalia.
What would that even mean? Pastoral poetry.
My thing, he says she's usually shown with a comic mask and a shepherd's staff. Her name means to flourish, and she represents the lighthearted and humorous aspects of life.
Pastor comes, I believe, from shepherd. So that would make sense. Like, not a pastor in the sense of, like, Pastor Dave down the street, but pastor.
Pastoral as it relates to.
I wonder if that comes from the word pasture.
I thought that's where you were going with it.
Yeah. Interesting. It's interesting that, in the story in Greek mythology, the lore is that, I don't know, I think, Zeus and Mnemosyne were playing tag or something, I don't know. And she turned into a fly, but then he grabbed hold of her and ate her. And then...
I guess he's not playing tag anymore.
And then they had sex at some point prior to then, so she was pregnant.
While she was a fly? Dude.
That's very well possible. So then these babies, he has I remember in the story, he has a pounding headache, and then that's when the muses come out. And that's interesting because, the brain is the birthplace of ideas. And where do ideas come from? In mindfulness meditation, you're told to sit there, close your eyes, and focus on your breath. When you find your mind drifting off, and get you distracted, you bring yourself back to the breath. Part of your mind is noticing another aspect of your mind.
Yep.
Wandering, and like there's these ideas that just kind of like flow in. Like Joe Rogan's used the terminology like fish, salmon flowing down a river, and there's certain ones that we choose to hold on to, and that's when the noticing side of the brain. I've heard like in the theory of like split brain, there's like a side of our brain that is present, and that's the side that experiences, and then there's the side that remembers, and that's like where ideas come from, or where
The part of our brain that remembers is where ideas come from. Maybe that's why I have writer's block so much, because my memory sucks.
I would say you have right. Like you seem to be spitting songs out all the time, and they're pretty good.
I think that's just a practiced state. The more you do it, the more you can do it.
Yeah.
It's like when you pick up a guitar and you learn it, you're sitting there, you're focusing just on where your fingers are, your timing and all this stuff, and are your notes flat? Are they sharp? Are they dull? Or are you playing the wrong things, the right things? And you can't even get your speed down because you're still focused on the basics, on your performance. Then you keep playing and eventually you can memorize that piece that you were working on, and now it's just getting the speed and technique down, and then you practice and practice more, and then eventually there comes a point where you can be talking to somebody and playing that same thing that you couldn't play before because you just have practiced so much that now it's easy.
So how does writer's block work with you? Like,
or how does it work? You just try to write something and you want to shoot yourself because you can't think of anything. Usually it's like you write something, it's like, a million people have already said this. Or, oh, that's just the same old stupid style that I've done so much that even I'm getting tired of it, Or you just can't come up with anything, And then I think one of the things that's exciting to talk about the Muse today is there's other moments where, you pick up your instrument, whatever, you play this part and you like it, and then you grab the notebook and a pen and you start writing the lyrics, and 30 minutes later, boom, whole song's done. And those songs are arguably better than the ones that I spend a week to construct brick by brick.
And you're not the first writer I've heard talk about that.
Oh, I know I'm not. I've heard that a lot, dude.
Especially in podcasts recently.
I've heard that in podcasts a lot. I've heard a couple rappers mention it in their music. And
Rick Rubin, are you familiar with who Rick Rubin is, Jonathan?
I know the name, I know the face, but I can't think of too many stories.
He's a big time music producer. Like he produced Adele. He produced
Rick Rubin. I was thinking Rick Ross, the freaking
Rick Rubin.
Okay.
A lot of like early rappers like in the 90s, he produced them. I'll pull up a few examples.
A few examples. I was wondering, sometimes that inspiration, where does it come from? Because there's been stuff that I write that I go back a month later, a year later, even a week later, like right away, and I read it, I'm like, man, dude, that's really not that good. I don't even know why I wrote it, and I thought it was good. Because objectively, it's poor writing. And then other times, there's stuff that I write that I go back, I'm like, dude, I'm never going to be able to write something more complex or more poetic than this. Like, I can't even believe I wrote that.
Right.
And sometimes in those moments where you get those lyrics, it's like they're just floating there in the air. You just grab them and write them down. Like my first song on that album is called Prostitute. I mentioned that. Like, I just sit down and write. I don't come up with the stuff. The words can be found in my brain with lyrics doubling up. All the words are there floating in a circular motion. I just reach up to the ones fading in and out of sight. And that's how it feels like I write a lot of those songs. You write all this stuff and you get practice writing all the bad stuff. And then you're just waiting for that inspirational moment. And then, boom. Okay, now you've been practicing, you have the technical skill to accurately write down what you're feeling in that moment of inspiration that's up there floating around, that all you got to do is connect, put it together. It's like a puzzle. Like the pieces are all there. You just got to string them together.
Mm-hmm. And also, like, I've heard enough, like my dad was saying a few weeks ago that he'll like be running into this issue like at work or something, and he's trying to solve this problem on how to like fix something, and he'll have a dream, and in his dream he dreams about it and he solves the problem, and then he tries it the next day and it works.
I've totally had that happen before.
So
It's like, where does that come from?
Yeah.
Is that subconscious? Like you're thinking about it all day, and then once you go to sleep and your brain's like, I don't know, dreams are weird. It's usually got something to do with whatever is preoccupying your mind most of the time. But other times like that, like maybe it's inspired in your dream because you've been spending so much time in thought about it during the day. But 9 times out of 10, it's always good. Like I've heard songs in my head that don't exist, you know? Like I try to remember them and write them down, but usually you can't remember them. But I've heard other people, like I can't think of any names, but I've known artists in the past that have mentioned that like they'll dream of a song that they haven't heard, they haven't been thinking about, but it's just there. Melodies there, the lyrics are there, the music's everything. Like I had that actually, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, where I wrote down the 1 or 2 little lines that I remembered from it, and I made a little voice memo with a melody. Like I want to see, I don't know how to go about it, except just trial and error, but I wanted to go see if anything like that exists. Like, am I remembering something I heard once or twice at some point in my life, or is that actually a whole new piece of work, piece of art that like is just there?
So Carl Jung, he had this term called, I believe it was I might totally botch this, but he had this term called the collective unconscious, where basically it's a phenomenon of various times in history where all over the world people were inventing a lot of the same things. People's different culture stories, mythology, had these monomyths, these like singular themes in their stories, like a flood, a beginning man and woman, and usually the woman does something to like disrupt things. Like they have the in the stories, the inventions, the cultural developments, there's like these these underlining similarities that happen strangely around the same time. And it goes back to our question, like, where do ideas come from? Where, like, we've talked about before, you know, we see religion differently. I don't believe the Bible was like God inspired in the sense of like me or you, or like we're saying like Moses or Ezekiel, and we see this vision, we like God speaks to us. Like I believe it was like a byproduct of the human brain. But just because something's a byproduct of the human brain and is produced or created, I don't think that, like, at least in my mind, it's not cheapening it, because it's like still like a mystery. It's still like, where do ideas come from, though?
Yeah, I think I'm tracking with you.
It might have, like, it might come from our brain, but where does that come from? Where does...
It's like you have an experience that in the moment you say, this is undoubtedly God speaking to me. So you record it as such.
But it might have, like, it's
your
like
personality.
A telephone, yeah. It has your personality in it. And so the narrative gets muddied.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, obviously, it's one of the arguments of anybody refuting Christianity, the God-inspired Word of God. It's like it was written by humans. Like, yes, under the inspiration of God, the divine influence. There is some faith, I think, that has to be taken with that to believe that what you're reading is inspired. You know, there's been councils and whatnot that determine even what's in our canon. There's extra biblical books that almost bring more clarity to these mysterious texts. Like, everybody says John the Baptist was boiled in oil, but does it say that in the Bible?
Not John the Baptist, John.
Yeah.
No, John the Baptist, he had his head cut off.
The Apostle John. My bad. Look at me failing. Yeah, that's not in the Bible, is it? But yet, we all take it as true.
Yeah, like the stories of the deaths of the apostles.
Yeah, Peter's
upside down cross.
Yep, he didn't think he was worthy to be sacrificed or killed in the same way Jesus was. So he's like, flip this cross upside down and sacrifice me on it because I'm not worthy to suffer the same death as my Savior. But that's not in the Bible either. But, I've heard that from the pulpit many times. So, but as soon as you go talking to somebody like, well, Enoch says this about, there's this void at the end of the world at the edge of the world where souls are, or like, the story of the Nephilim and how they were created, it goes into detail about that story that's just a couple verses in Genesis. But you say that and people are like, oh, don't explore too much outside of the Bible because you don't know how much of that's true. You don't want to hurt your faith.
Who decided the perimeters of the Bible?
Yeah, the Council of Nicaea and...
That was the council where, I believe, this happened like 300 AD. Emperor Constantine, he was accepting Christianity as like a recognized and accepted religion, because prior to that it wasn't accepted and it was actually persecuted. But at this point in history, there was a huge diverse slew of like a wide variety of Christians. There was Gnostics, where basically they were like more like mystical Christians, where they believed that Christ came to reveal hidden knowledge and salvation is attained through receiving that hidden knowledge. And then there were Christians who had like a more kind of Jewish lifestyle, where it was like following the example of Jesus based on works, and they were called Ebionites, which means the poor in Aramaic, I believe. I believe Aramaic's the correct language. And basically their big point was basically living a life like abandoning possession, living as a poor person. Because it's not said that Jesus had a house, and he was frequently like, both, I believe, in all the synoptic gospels, there's a story of rich man coming to Jesus. What shall I do to inherit eternal life?
Yeah, sell all your possessions and give it to the poor, and then follow me.
And so that was a kind of works-based Christianity that they didn't believe like Jesus was the Son of God either. Their story of Matthew, which is a very old Gospel of Matthew, it began at the baptism of Jesus. So like the virgin birth wasn't involved in that Gospel of Matthew, and it began at the baptism of Jesus, and it was believed by the Ebionites that Jesus was born of like man and woman just like us, but based on his righteousness, God at his baptism said, "This is my begotten son. Today my beloved son, today I have begotten you." That's why that's there, because in a very old form of the Gospel of Matthew, that's was believed by the Ebionites to be when he became the Son of God, not like divine conception. So, and there was this wide variety of Christians when Constantine accepted it as a recognized religion, and then, but in order to control, or in order to have like control over a religion, you want to simplify it. And so in order to simplify it, they held the Council of Nicaea, which was to choose what the accepted narrative recognized version of Jesus was. And that's where we got like a lot of our canon in the New Testament, which is like creates the narrative that salvation is attained through faith in Jesus and his sacrifice. And that was like the Pauline Christians. That is like, most scholars will say that belief in Jesus is traced back to Paul. Paul invented that one.
I want to go on a rabbit trail. A common theme in a lot of the apocryphal, I don't know if that's the Apocrypha.
That's like
Apocryphal.
That's found in the Catholic Bible. It's probably like 16 to 20 books that aren't in our Bible.
The Catholic Bible does have a lot that are like, they have the Maccabees, I believe, and Enoch.
That's
and
the story of Hanukkah is derived from 1st and 2nd Maccabees.
Yeah, isn't there what's that question? I forget what disciples, maybe all of them. They asked Jesus, like, if a woman is married to a man and he dies, and then she's married again and he dies, blah, blah, blah.
Happened 7 times.
Yep, who's she married with in heaven?
Yeah.
That's a story from Tobit, right?
Yeah.
Tobit. it's like you would never know what they're even talking about if you hadn't read that book. I mean, it doesn't, I think, necessarily take away what Jesus said after that. Like, you're missing out. Yeah, there is context. It's like Enoch gives a whole bunch of context on the fallen angels that come down. It lists them by name, and then Enoch goes on this trip in his favorite rocket ship around the whole world, all of creation, basically.
Yeah.
As God's pointing things out, and he's like, what's this? And God tells him, what's this? God tells him. It's fascinating. But like some of them, okay, like Tobit, or I don't know, like why they don't take away the meaning of anything in the Gospels, or in the Old Testament either, for that matter, or any of Paul's writings. They'd go right along with it. So what is the reason that some of those books were taken out?
Yeah, like, for example, the book of Revelation was a book that the various church fathers fought hard to keep in, and other ones fought hard to try to take out the book of Revelation. But a lot of people don't know that. Like Martin Luther, I believe it was Martin Luther. Not Martin Luther King Jr., Martin Luther, the founder of the Lutheran Church. I believe he was very much against the book of Revelation.
Why?
I don't know. I think perhaps because it is not sure who wrote it. Like, it's mentioned John, but they don't know which John. And some early Christians did also believe that to be talking about events of the first century, like back then, not talking about future events.
Now you're getting into conspiracy theorist realm.
Well, no, not necessarily, because there's also, like, New Testament scholars that do have that, like, approach to it.
I've entertained that thought before, like looking at what different Revelation events could have been tied, or what could have been,
well, like, one is
what
like,
historical events could have been some of the events so far in Revelation.
It's understood that this got written, I believe, in, like, 60, 80, and around that time, Emperor Nero, he was the emperor of Rome. And so, like, okay, I'm going to go to, like, where it talks about the mark of the beast. It says the number of his name is 666, 666. In, like, Greek and in Hebrew, each letter had a numerical value. And so the numerical value of Nero was 666. And he was very, very viciously opposed to Christianity. He would, like, I believe, hang Christians up in his garden, light them on fire, and ride around in his chariot, naked, drinking alcohol, screaming like a heathen, shooting them with arrows. He was, like, a hateful, evil person towards Christianity.
Sounds like a nice guy to go watch a movie with.
I can't remember if it's him in particularly, but I believe the Apostle Paul, like, that was, like, his, like, mission. He wanted to go speak to him. Well, like, okay, for example, I can't remember. It's one of Paul's epistles. He talks about how he's going to confront, like, the devil, or, like, he talks about confronting the Antichrist as if the Antichrist was there. And his mission, like, he wanted to go to Rome and to talk to Nero. And I almost want to say that's how it's believed that Paul died.
Yeah, it is kind of a mystery. Acts just is, like, in the middle of a story, and it's over. Book ends.
He gets to Rome.
Got shipwrecked, and
He finally gets to Rome.
Yep.
But there was, like, a pretty extended period of time that he was, like, in Rome after that. But I would say his epistles kind of also fill in those gaps a little bit.
I've heard it said also, hearsay, the elites these days, leaders of the entire world, the cabal, if you will, led under the influence of some supernatural entity that could be any of numerous gods, that they, through technology and manipulation of masses, are trying to usher in the events of Revelation as it's described in the Bible, so that people think the end times are coming, so that they can present a false hope in whatever form they decide it should look like, so that people depend on them for everything, so that they can gain more control over the masses of the world. It's like the Hadron Collider, CERN, how they're that particle accelerator in Europe, I think it's Europe, under the ground, they can accelerate particles and collide them together and watch and observe the interaction of them on that moment of impact and what they do afterwards. And if you follow the chain of companies involved in that, you can also find a bunch of other technologies like little drone flies, right? And drone flying scorpions that you put two and two together of maybe this particle accelerator is capable of opening up some kind of interdimensional portal to a different realm with different creatures we don't know about, such as the depths opening up in Revelation. And then you go over here and look at these little robotic creatures they're making that, in the limited language of the time and understanding of way back then.
Faces of lions and...
Yep.
Yeah.
That perhaps, you get this portal opened up, combined with this technology and whatever might be in that portal, it would look really similar to a lot of the events in Revelation as they're happening.
Right. One that I've thought of, again, I don't believe that I don't believe Revelation is talking about the future, that it's going to happen. I do believe that it was talking about historical events. But sometimes I do look at society and, how things could go, or, if I was still a fundamentalist, who would I think's the Antichrist in the world today? And one person that actually came to mind when I asked myself that was Elon Musk.
Why do you say that?
So I believe it's in Revelation 13. It talks about how there was this lamb with the mouth of a dragon. So they're portrayed as a false prophet, or they had the guise of a lamb. A lamb represented Jesus, a pure leader, with the mouth of a dragon. Dragon represents the devil in Revelation, deception, evil. And there was a beast who rose out of the sea with a mortal head wound. And the lamb with the mouth of a dragon healed the head of the beast and gave the beast life. And the whole world marveled that the dragon had healed the beast whose head had been mortally wounded. And then the lamb tells the masses, the people of the world, to worship the beast and his image. And the beast requires that in order to buy or sell, you must on your right hand or on your forehead receive a mark. And then it goes into
the microchip.
Let he who has knowledge and wisdom interpret this. And that says the number of his name is 666, which I believe was talked about Nero. But say in this hypothetical situation, Elon Musk, let's say he creates an AI and gives the AI life. The whole world marvels at this AI that's invented to give us direction. And this direction, it's based in science. It's calculated. It's good wisdom. It's good guidance. And we're told that, to receive a Neuralink, which could be the mark that connects you to the AI. So basically the AI is in your head giving you guidance, and not only guidance, but accessibility to the world around it, because maybe the AI is intertwined with our technology, like computers, the commerce, because we are flawed humans. We don't know how to control it. And then, so we're not natural humans anymore. We're a modified version of humans made it. And so that would be the climax of idolatry, is creating an image of being and then giving it life and consciousness and then following it.
giving
Yes.
the AI life through fusing it with humans and not being able to buy or sell or anything unless you have this technology in you. You know, swipe your wrist in front of a
I feel like
POS instead of your card tap.
the AI would almost act like it would almost act like the part of our consciousness that, like, the internal dialogue, the thoughts that come in, the ruminating, it's where ideas come from. And so we have this extra part of our brain that's AI. I imagine almost throughout time it would almost become indistinguishable. It'd be like a Muse.
Have you heard of the voice of God technology?
Mm-mm.
Where there's these weapons, I guess. I don't know what you call them, but this technology where through broadcast, these machines are capable of implanting thoughts into your head that aren't yours, they're artificial, but you still think them. And they can, direct basically your actions because they're controlling your thoughts to an extent, implanting things into your mind you wouldn't otherwise think of. Oh, I gotta help somebody at the store today. Or maliciously, oh, I'm depressed, I want to jump out of this 2-story building. And then, however they want to control the population, doing it that way through controlling the thoughts. I mean, the technology's there. Dude, like my dad argues with me all the time when I bring up that there is technology in place to control the weather. And he's like, they can't control nature. That's impossible. I'm like,
if it's not happening now, I could totally see that being like something.
I mean, in the very
down the tube.
most basic way, they like make clouds rain artificially over places that are having droughts. You can manipulate, what is it they spread in, like aluminum flakes, I think. And even then, like you look at NATO, right? How long ago that's been? Almost like 80 something years or so. In NATO, there's a little thing in there that mentions not using technology to manipulate the weather. Like, why was that way back then? Why was that in there? They say that the government in the United States has technology 40 years, in front of the main population, the civilians. So if you think of it that way, like in the 1960s, they had cameras that in orbit around the Earth could zoom in so clearly that you could read a license plate on a car.
Do you think
in the 60s?
Do you think Elon Musk got like intertwined with the government like he currently is so that he has access to that technology if it exists?
Musk, I think, is a modern day genius who, innocently or not, I think he just has an interest in technology and he's been building as much as he can, just pursuing what he's good at. And in the process, probably, he's gotten tied up in the government. They're not going to blindly not pay attention to a guy with that much influence, power, technology, and money.
It's almost like in a Marvel movie with Tony Stark, like becoming this like high acting member of the government. He was talking in one of the recent episodes on the Joe Rogan Experience to like all the he has access to government intel now. He's like I think he said he has access to 90% of it.
Well, dude, think about that government being 40 years ahead in technology. Like, what's available to the masses the government had 40 years prior. Think of AI now and how they're, you can fake video to make it look and sound like...
It's starting to look pretty good, too.
That's accessible. And you're telling me that 40 years before now, that, 1985, they had that technology in the government? And if technology only increases at an exponential rate, imagine what they currently have now that we can't even comprehend the complexity of it.
Do you think the government had access to, AI like we have now in the 80s?
That's what I'm proposing, I guess. That's what I'm thinking about. It's almost unbelievable to imagine that in the decade of Star Wars and how crappy Like
That was a
CGI.
government issue movie,
Like,
though.
there wasn't even CGI yet. It was like everything was special effects, you know? And now, dude, you can't, like, movies are movies are realistic. Like, oh, what's the freaking one? It's one of the Marvel movies. Dude.
Just mention something. I'm a big nerd.
Magician.
Oh, Doctor Strange.
Doctor Strange. Everything in that movie is so realistic. Like, you don't look at it like Godzilla and say, oh, wow, that's fake, or that sucks. Like, wow, that, you know,
You kind of get sucked into the world.
might have entertained somebody back when my dad was a kid or grandpa was a kid, but, like, nowadays, dude, movies are freaking realistic. Like, CGI and special effects have come so far. And on top, like the CGI specifically, the technology of that, if that's accessible by anybody with a couple of computer programs, you know, you sign up for an Adobe suite and you can basically do it. You just have to have the knowledge. Like,
the AI that we have access to, like, have you seen those videos where it's like this animal, it's like turns into a human, or a human turns into an animal, and like there's usually they have an extra leg, or
I'm about to delete my Instagram because of those stupid videos, because that's all my feed is. It's ticking me off. I don't follow any of it. I never commented on any of that stuff. I just scroll through my feed on my cat's Instagram, and it's full of this AI stuff. I'm like, dude, I just want to see cats,
name
bro.
drop Lucky, and where you can find them on Instagram.
That one cat Lucky. Underscore between all the words.
Unless
that
by
one
the time
cat
this
Lucky.
episode airs, he's deleted the Instagram to get away from the AI reels.
If that one cat Lucky's page does not exist, Lucky either died or... You know what? I'm going to leave it up even if he dies. It's only going to be because of the stupid AIs.
You'll probably hear, if he dies, you'll probably hear about it on the podcast.
Of course, I'll make an announcement. The other cat that we have, Misty, and yes, she's named after the Pokemon character. Yeah, I don't care about her. She's a terrible cat. A terrible house cat. She scratches
like
everything.
Kind of like my current cat compared to my
poop
cat
smells
I had a couple years ago.
freaking awful.
My current cat, her name's Persephone. A few years ago, I had this cat named Butters.
No, Butters.
Yeah, named after Butters from South Park. And he was like this inbred farm cat that had a ton of personality. So what he lacked in good genes, he had in personality. But this cat, she's all right. She's just not Butters, though. So, yeah, AI.
No, you gotta say how Butters kicked the bucket. Butters is pushing up daisies right now.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Well, it's from eating a flower that my wife brought in the house that she didn't know that was poisonous to cats, and then he ate it, and I think he died probably like tripping or something because he was acting weird, and I think like the flower he ate was almost like psychedelic to him or something because he was like...
What a way to go. You'd think that they'd know better. Like some kind of instinct would keep them. Like we had goats growing up, and you could put...
Usually, my wife researched it, and usually, like, yeah, cats, they won't, like, they'll sense it. They won't eat something poisonous, but he was inbred.
Maybe that's...
He was inbred, so I think that...
Oh, no. That poor
that's
cat,
reason
dude.
he came from my parents' farm where, like, the barn cats, they just keep, like, mating with each other and producing, like, relative offspring, and we were, like, giving a bunch of the cats away, trying to, like, get rid of them and, like, bring purity back to the farm cat bloodline, and so I took Butters, and...
Population control, you could say.
Yeah.
Huh. You should work for government.
No, thank you.
Control some of Alabama. That's like your cats. Try to disperse them out through the rest of the country.
Kidnap people and bring them out to California or different places trying to... We're going on a ride. You gotta get away from your cousin.
That's where illegal immigrants should
I
go.
want to go back to her.
The illegal immigrants should go to Alabama. It actually might help their bloodlines. It'll clean them up a little bit. They might have all their teeth. And their eyes will both point the same direction.
I don't know nothing about Alabama, so I've never been... Well, I've been through Alabama, but...
I gotta go down to Alabama, get some of that Cajun cooking.
I stopped at a Buc-ee's, and some of the people did look a little cross-eyed, though.
Buc-ee's. Best gas station in the country.
Oh, yeah. They have everything you may need at Buc-ee's.
And they're huge.
They're huge.
They need to have truck stops. Are there truck stop Buc-ee's?
I think so.
Really? I've only ever seen gas stations.
They had these, like, huge gas pumps that were big enough for a semi to pull under.
Yeah, they got 50 gigantic gas pumps so you could fit a semi in, but no truck pumps.
They're always right off the highway, too.
I bought an alligator head at a truck stop in Texas once. It's that one sitting right there. So somehow we traversed the strange universe from the Muse to conspiracy theories and the end times.
A better name for the podcast might be Rabbit Trailing the Strange Universe, or the Strange World, with Peace and Toodles.
I feel like that's a mouthful.
Almost kind of gives people, what to expect.
You can say that again. We should make some outlines for these things.
Sometimes in your traversing, you go on rabbit trails,
It's not the destination.
The path
it's the journey.
The traversing, it's not always clear, Sometimes you get distracted and you go down little rabbit trails, but you get back on the path.
Why don't you think there's people with visions these days like they had back, like Moses getting spoken to through a burning bush, or Ezekiel's vision, or Isaiah in the temple?
I don't believe that's necessarily what was happening.
What do you think it was? Too much mushrooms?
No, not necessarily. that could have been what happened, but I think it was like a byproduct of the human mind. But again... That's
pretty vivid.
Again, where do these archetypal constructs in our human minds come from? I think that we have experiences with the unconscious side of our mind that goes to places beyond our understanding, and I think that might have been what was happening when, it was created. I don't think it was like God, interacting with them in the way that we understand it, but it was coming from the human mind. But where does that come from? Where do those ideas come from?
What kind of artistic expressions do you make into the world? Because you're more of you're a bodybuilder. You have a business that it's pretty physical. You don't do a lot artistically, right? Like, you do karaoke and you've written some poetry.
I would say that's the extent of it. Is I've done some poetry and some. By the way, we're rabbit trailing tremendously right now.
No, I'm trying to bring it back to the Muse.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to ask if you do you think that you get inspired from the Muse?
Yes. So one artistic aspect that I'm working on, I don't necessarily I haven't revealed anything to the world yet, is storytelling. There's one day this story that just kind of came to me that we've talked about before. I'm not going to share it on here because I don't want to get copyrighted or something. After this releases, where I see this movie or something that comes out and I was like, hey, that sounds familiar.
One of those 3 people that listen to us is going to steal it.
That's definitely an art I want to exercise, though, is writing and storytelling. Yeah, constructing some of my ideas or the things in my head in form of words, and whether that be an audible story, a movie. That's something that would be cool to get into, is producing a low budget movie.
Let's do it. Let's make a low budget movie. We got a dumpy town that would make some good backdrops. I got a cheap camera.
Hell yeah.
Between the two of us writing, it might be at a 3 out of 10.
And if it sucks, we can just say it's a stoner comedy.
I don't care if it sucks. We should just make it and put it out.
Those are usually they're very odd or weirdly produced,
It's not going to be worse than some movies I've seen.
Yeah.
I'll put it that way.
I agree.
Well, you want to wrap it there?
Yes. Remember to be nicer and smarter to everybody. And if you can't be nicer or smarter, be quieter.
If you're going to be dumb, you got to be tough.
That's right.
All right, so write something inspired by the Muses and let's get out of here.
All right. I've been Peace.
Toodles.
Talk to you later, everybody.
If you would like to contact us, email us at peaceandtoodles@gmail.com. Until next time, salutations, my fellow strangers.
What will they think of next?